this video, we are going to talk about high air pressure and low air pressure. But before anything else, we have to unlock first what air pressure or atmospheric pressure is. Air. It's something that we don't see, but there's lots of it. The Earth is surrounded by an envelope of air. That is what we call the atmosphere. We live at the bottom of the atmosphere, and the weight of all the air above us is called atmospheric pressure. The air in the atmosphere exerts pressure on the Earth, and that pressure exerted by air is known as the atmospheric pressure. The snow, wind, and air are some phenomena created by the wind. These vary depending on the pressure of the air. A large volume of air in the atmosphere that is mostly uniform in temperature and moisture, and its temperature depends on its position of latitude, is what we call air mass.
Air masses formed in low latitude areas are most likely warm, and those in high latitude areas that are cold. Air masses can be identified whether they form over land or water. The boundary where two air masses containing different properties meets is known as fronts. The line where warm and cold air meets in the surface. We have four types of fronts, and we will be discussing first about cold fronts and warm fronts. This fronts depends on how cold and warm air meets.
Cold front is the transition zone where a cold air mass is replacing a warmer air mass. The cold air is following the warm air and gradually moves underneath the warmer air as it is more denser. When warm air pushes upwards, massive cumulus clouds forms that can cause heavy rain and thunderstorms. The presence of warm fronts means that warm air is advancing and rising up over cold air. This is because warm air is less dense than cold air. The warm air is replacing cooler air at the surface. A stratus clouds will appear and causes light precipitation. A cold air from the cold front meets the cool air that was ahead of the warm front. The warm air rises as these air masses form together. Occluded fronts usually form around areas of low atmospheric pressure. There is often precipitation from clouds. After the front passes, the sky is usually clearer and the air is drier. Stationary fronts. These forms when cold or warm front stops moving. When two masses pushes against each other, but neither is powerful enough to move the other. The weather is often cloudy, rainy, or snowy, especially if the front is in an area of low atmospheric pressure. Here's an illustration of high and low air pressure, and I will be discussing it in simple terms. So I'd like to start with the high air pressure. So here we have to understand too the water cycle. When air rises and cools and undergoes condensation, it makes clouds. Whenever there's rising, we get precipitation. So as you can see at the illustration, there's pretty much convergence zone aloft happening here. So you can see the winds are coming together. So the blue arrows are showing the directions of the winds. When the winds are coming together, there's nowhere else to go but to go down. So it sinks and spreads air clockwise, it subsides. So as it sinks, it warms as it encounters higher pressure near the ground, and it forms clouds, and that means good weather is coming. And we have the low pressure. So here, there's a divergence zone aloft going on where the direction of the wind above are going separate ways. So since we can't have a void here, something must replace here. So air rises from the surface of the ground. So from high pressure air to low pressure air, it goes into low pressure counterclockwise. Since there's nowhere else to go, it rises to fill the void above. So whenever there's rising, we get precipitation, right? So when air rises, it cools, it condenses, clouds form, rain, sometimes thunderstorm occur. So that's just it. Pretty much simple.